It all starts with a new game called Night Defense that promises a big reward. The prize for the first winner is 10 billion won, an amount that would change any life. Our protagonist thinks that with this money, he could finally solve his problems. In his dark room, he dreams of money, because with it, the young man could finally escape. He wants to escape from something, and on his computer screen, we see the news about a famous politician. This politician is Kim Yui-soo, and another article reveals a little about his life with his son. Your son is an exemplary boy, the best in school, and a source of pride for his perfect family. It turns out that the boy in the photo is our protagonist, who is now at school watching his own news. In the room, a girl approaches him, complimenting him on being amazing, but he looks uncomfortable. Soon after, she calls him to talk in private with a somewhat suspicious smile. In the distance, another student watches with envy at how close the two model students seem to be. But in an alley, the girl insists on something, while the young man just ignores her coldly. Then it is revealed that it was all a trap, and the girl was with a group of bullies. Jae-hoon says he already lent her 300,000 won and refuses to give her another amount. With that, one of the guys grabs him and threatens him, saying that he will expose his illegal website to everyone. The attacker says that the girl is also an accomplice, because she knew everything. Mockingly, the bully suggests that everyone turn themselves in to the police then. He asks who will lose in this situation, and the protagonist panics. After all, the reputation of his father, an incorruptible politician, would be tarnished forever. With that, the girl approaches him, trying to convince him with her charm to give her the money. His words echo in the mind of the young man who arrives home and stops in front of a door. His hand trembles with nervousness, but he gathers his courage and decides to open the door to the room. Upon entering the room, the boy is clearly frustrated with the whole situation. Suddenly, a voice startles him, asking why he is just standing there. The famous politician looks at him with a serious look and asks if he has anything to say. The young man just lowers his head, unable to look his father in the eyes. His father reminds him that the election is coming, and even if his son doesn't help, he at least shouldn't do anything that could tarnish his family's honor. Seeing his son's silence, the politician grabs him by the collar and demands an answer. The man tightly grips the young man's collar, showing all his anger. The young man then smiles forcefully and tells his father not to worry, as he will not disappoint him. His father looks at him with contempt and asks if there is anything that could disappoint him more. The politician continues saying that his son just needs to live doing exactly what he tells him to do. With these words, the boy falls to the ground completely without hope, because this is his life. On the ground, the boy despairs and wonders what he should do and why this is happening to him. Suddenly, a hand touches his shoulder, startling him. At that moment, the protagonist turns around completely panicked about what it could be, but to his surprise, it was only his pet cat that was there meowing at him. Relieved, the young man calls his cat and asks if the feline was worried about him. Sitting in his chair, the boy plays with his cat, who climbs on him and starts tickling him. He then holds the kitten in the air, calling the little animal a little pest. Hugging his only friend, he says that no one is on his side, neither at school nor at home. With that, the boy turns to the computer where we see a game screen. His eyes shine as he has cleared 99 waves and only has one more to go. But to his complete misfortune, the game over screen appears and he loses everything. On the cell phone screen, the level 100 wave appears, along with the game over message. All he can see is the game over screen shining brightly in front of him. Desperately, the boy wonders why this always happens to him at the last moment. With the cell phone in his hand, he realizes that the game seems impossible because he has tried hundreds of times. Elsewhere, a famous streamer is also outraged by the insane difficulty of this same game. The angry boy warns that no one should play this game because it is complete garbage. It turns out that many players manage to clear all 99 waves without any major issues. However, to this day, no one in the world has managed to surpass the 100th wave and become a legend. But still, he looks at his kitty and thinks he can't just give up now. The young man knows that the game is the only way to escape his horrible life with his cat. His hope is a rare item he got from the boss of stage 99. But even with this super strong item, the protagonist was unable to get past the final stage. Out of ideas, the boy wonders how he can finally finish the challenge. At that moment, your cat's paw touches the screen right on top of the item he was looking at. Surprised by the animal's attitude, the boy looks at it and calls it by its name. The cat's paw accidentally presses the button to dismantle the rare item he had. Completely in shock, the boy can only scream his cat's name. At this point, the game notifies you that Rezeldrake's heart has been successfully dismantled by the feline. The young man becomes desperate because all his progress and effort have been thrown away, but instead of disappearing, the rare item turned into 1,000 enhancement fragments. In his chair, the boy laments that now the only way is to start all over again from scratch. Pulling his hair, he wonders if starting the game over will do any good. However, something unexpected happens, and along with the fragments, a new item appears: the Dragon Soul. Confused, the protagonist looks at the screen and tries to understand what just happened there. He wonders why normally, when you disassemble an item, you only receive fragments, until a light goes on in his mind, and he realizes that maybe there is another way out. At that moment, the Dragon Soul is used, and a new hope arises for the boy. With a determined look, the young man understands that this is the key to winning wave number 100. Without hesitation, the protagonist moves his finger towards the button to start a new journey. Then the scene cuts to the boy's real life in an ordinary classroom in Korea. The protagonist is an ordinary student who during the day has a normal life like any other. But when night comes, his routine changes completely and he locks himself in his room to play. In fact, the game has become an addiction and he doesn't stop playing even when he's on the street. So when he gets home, the young man runs straight to the computer and continues his journey. After all, he had already won 99 waves and only had one left to finish the game. But thanks to his cat and the Dragon Soul, he got a new chance to try. At that moment, the boy analyzes his new strategy and believes that this time everything will work out. Full of confidence, the boy starts the last wave, the most difficult of all. With the help of the Dragon Soul, your character now faces a horde of monsters. Desperately, he uses all his skills while hoping that everything will work out. With this, an overwhelming power is released and destroys all enemies on the screen. His hope is renewed because the young man feels that this time the result will be different. With his eyes fixed on the screen, the protagonist shouts that he will certainly win this battle. And to your surprise, the long-awaited victory screen finally appears on the monitor. The player is ecstatic because all his effort and dedication have been rewarded. But his moment of joy is interrupted when the door opens and his father appears asking what he zeroed. The boy turns pale when he sees the man who says he received a call from his friends. Apparently, these guys dared to ask his father for money, using the boy's mistake as an excuse. Then the older man remembers that he had already warned him not to do anything that would tarnish his honor. Desperately, the young man apologizes to his father while shaking with fear from head to toe. He promises it will never happen again, but his father is already lifting a golf club. Without any mercy, the man strikes with all his strength towards his son. With that, the protagonist screams in pain as the object hits his body squarely. His eyes widen in pure shock and despair at the situation he is in. Amidst the shards of his notebook, he thinks about how weak he is and how he can't do anything against his father. A tear runs down his face as he remembers that that man never did anything for him. At that point, the boy stands up and with a blank look asks his father where his cat Ruru is. The man coldly responds that he no longer needs such a thing, and the young man does not understand. Upon hearing this, the protagonist grits his teeth in a mixture of hatred and impotence. His father then looks at him and asks in a threatening tone what that expression on his face means. In a panic, the boy repeats the question with a look of hatred, wanting to know where his cat is. Without any emotion, the father reveals that the pet is already with his deceased mother. This revelation hits the young man hard, and tears of pure despair stream from his eyes. Then the man holds his son's face and tells him that he just needs to live doing what he is told. This way you will have wealth and honor, so he warns you not to disappoint him ever again. With a disturbing smile, the older man says he believes in the boy's potential. He ends by saying that he trusts him, while the protagonist remains paralyzed by pain. In his thoughts, the boy says that he hates all of it and that he simply can't take it anymore. He screams in his mind that he can no longer bear that life of suffering and humiliation. Suddenly, a system window appears congratulating you for finishing the game in first place. But now it's too late, and the boy thinks there's no reason to keep holding on. Then your destroyed cell phone shines, and a system message invites you to something new. The screen draws you into the world of that game as a bright light bursts through the window. With that, a great beam of light descends from the heavens and reaches a city in another universe. There, two knights look at the light and say that the person who will save them has finally arrived. The boy appears in a great hall, and all the knights bow before him, calling him a hero. The people of that kingdom also celebrate his arrival, saying that finally the savior has appeared. But the boy notices something strange about himself because even with everything he's been through, he can't cry. He realizes that his feelings have been zeroed out, and now he simply can't feel anything. At that moment, a bearded man clears his throat to get the attention of the young man, who remains standing still. Then the king of that place asks him if he really is the legendary knight who will save the kingdom. The boy looks at the monarch's face and recognizes him from somewhere, but doesn't know exactly where. Then he remembers that that man is the same king who appears in the intro of the game he finished. The monarch introduces himself as Bayless Jordia III, the young king of the kingdom of Jordia. He then explains that the kingdom is in a terrible crisis with monsters invading from all sides. In the middle of the conversation, a soldier comes running and says that they are in big trouble. The boy hears all of this and begins to process the current situation and the scenario of the kingdom. The messenger then approaches the throne and begins to whisper the details of the situation. The boy confirms that it is identical to the intro of the game he played called Night Defense. Because of the urgency of the situation, the king says he will skip the formalities and get straight to the point. At that moment, a game screen appears asking if he accepts to be the commander of the knights. He then touches the ground to confirm that it is real and prepares to give his only condition. His condition is simple. He asks the monarch for the small sum of 1 billion won. Then a memory comes to mind showing him in his room while petting his cat. The boy remembers a moment of happiness that soon turned into total despair. He spent nights playing in his dark room with the company of his little feline. Back in the present, the nobles whisper that the hero seems weak to ask for 1 billion. The monarch doesn't know what 1 billion is, but promises to give the young man whatever he wants to protect everyone. The protagonist is surprised by the king's words, who reinforces that he will grant any wish. In astonishment, the boy asks if the sovereign will really give him anything he asks for. With a strange smile, the king tells the boy not to worry and just follow his orders. At that moment, the protagonist understands the truth, and an expression of terror takes over his face. His eyes turn red as he remembers that his true desire is for wealth and honor as well. A traumatic memory flashes through his mind of someone promising him whatever he wanted. With eyes full of hatred, the young man prepares to give his definitive answer to the monarch. Remembering the promise, the monarch tries to convince the young man to believe his words. But the protagonist, with a cry of fury, refuses the proposal and says he will not do it. Faced with the response, the sovereign is completely shocked and does not understand what happened. The boy then remembers that wherever he went, everyone used him because he was the son of a congressman. Even the people he liked would come close, just to take advantage of him. Since he was little, he was manipulated by his father and everyone around him without exception. Shouting, the boy asks if they want him to become a slave to the knights. He says with contempt that he does not need the fame or wealth the ruler offered. The king just watches in silence as the boy rejects everything he most desires. At that moment, the hero looks at the screen and tells everyone there to go to hell. Without hesitation, his finger moves towards the button to decline the monarch's offer. The nobles and the king are astonished because they cannot believe that the hero is doing this. Upon confirmation, the screen turns red and the system accepts the young person's refusal. After a while, the kingdom was attacked by countless monsters that appeared from all sides, and because of the player's failure to protect the kingdom, everything was completely destroyed. Everything was destroyed, and the boy thought that was the end. But something changed. Suddenly, the system informs him that because he rejected humans, he can choose a new side. In this way, a secret route is unlocked, and the monster faction becomes available to the young man. The boy is confused by this new option and tries to understand what it means. He then realizes that it will not be a game of defense and that he will now be on the attacking side. Going back a little in time, the king says that every choice comes with its responsibilities. Angrily, the sovereign shouts to everyone that the boy is no longer a legendary knight. Furious, he declares him an enemy who not only humiliated him but also betrayed the country. Even so, the boy looks at the ruler with a firm gaze and without any remorse. The king continues his speech, saying that the young man has put all the people in danger. With that, the monarch orders his knights to attack and finish off the traitor. The guards quickly advance towards the hero with a thirst for revenge in their eyes. The boy then thinks that he has endured too much humiliation for too long now. In an instant, all the soldiers in the kingdom surround the boy, pointing their weapons at him. But the young man is not shaken, and with his eyes shining, he just screams for everyone to die. However, the knight's swords stop inches from the boy's neck, who stares at them with hatred. From his body, a red energy explodes, throwing all the soldiers away violently. The king is completely shocked to see the absurd power the former hero has just used. At that moment, the system confirms the faction choice, and the young man begins to transform. The system informs that it will now surpass human abilities and cause hostility in them. Then the system window reveals what the monster faction's ultimate goal will be. With a determined look, the boy faces the human faction as his new great enemy. He then declares that it is now his turn to attack and no longer just defend himself. With that, the boy sees a horde of monsters preparing for the first wave of attack. The system informs him that he will only have 10 minutes to prepare before the start. As time passes, the system reminds you again what your faction's objective is. The ultimate goal is nothing less than to completely destroy the human faction. As a reward for completing the task, he will be able to pick up an item and take it to his world. Upon hearing that he can return home, the young man is surprised and starts thinking about something. He remembers a girl from his world and thinks maybe he can take her with him. With that, the red energy coming from his body violently throws all the soldiers away. The knights stand up confused and wonder about the sinister energy they felt from the boy. Even the king is shocked by the situation and wonders if it can really be called a monster. The monarch had never felt such energy from a person in his entire life. The boy realizes that faction selection was not something that existed in the original version of the game. Then the main quest window appears in front of you, with the monster faction oath. Now with white hair, he notices that even with the different mission, the game progresses normally. Thinking about this, he knows that if everything is as in the game, then now he should get a summoning ticket. But to the young man's surprise, instead of the ticket he was expecting, the system delivered a large egg. The system window explains that in place of the knight, he received an S-rank monster egg. The protagonist then agrees to hatch the item, and at the same time a strong light comes out from inside the egg. In a few seconds, the item breaks completely, revealing the creature that was inside. The knights nearby are completely terrified by the summoned creature. The boy can't believe what he sees because he knows very well the monster that has just been summoned. He summoned none other than the cold-blooded dragon, a boss from Wave 99 of the game. The boy thinks that if this dragon were summoned in the middle of the kingdom, it would be the end of everything. But to his surprise, the fearsome monster appears as a small, cute creature. He is shocked to see that the summoned being is only a level 1 hatchling. The little creature looks at its new master with an innocent and curious look. Then the little dragon begins to lick the young man's finger like a kitten. Still not believing what happened, the white-haired boy is speechless. At that point, a system notification appears telling him to use the Eye of the Sovereign. This passive skill allows him to see the status of surrounding monsters and items. The knights recover from their shock and see that he has summoned only a small monster. With their guard down, the commander orders all his troops to advance to attack. The protagonist decides that no matter the situation, he must survive at all costs. Then he activates his new ability, and his eye glows with an intense purple light. The boy knows that his only hope now lies in the power of his little companion. Analyzing the information, he sees that the creature has the dragon's breath skill. Without hesitation, the young man orders Ruzzledrak to use his ability against the soldiers. Before him, the knights advance, ready for the final attack without any mercy. The boy then yells for his little companion to use dragon breath. Obeying its master, the little creature begins to prepare its powerful ability. In an instant, a beam of red energy is fired, hitting a soldier head-on. The knight commander is shocked by the small being's destructive power. The energy blast passes through the entire enemy front line without difficulty. The attack is so strong that it passes through the palace wall and reaches the city. With that, a giant piece of a tower collapses on innocent citizens. The result is a gigantic hole in the castle wall, leaving everyone speechless. Even the silver-haired youth is amazed at his dragon's power. One of the survivors shouts that the palace wall has been destroyed with one blow. The others wonder what kind of demon the boy was able to summon there. The protagonist realizes that everything was easier than he thought, and already plans his next step. Then a system message appears, saying that he can return to his original world. To do this, he needs to conquer the castle and obtain one of the numerous items that exist there. He thinks that among so many items in the castle, one of them will have the ability he wants. After all, the boy is in no rush to return to his original world. At this point, your only focus is to complete the mission while your pet looks hungry. Suddenly, a man with a crown calls him the representative of the human faction. Sitting on his throne, the king continues his speech with a very serious look on his face. But the boy says he will bring about their destruction because he needs his reward. Meanwhile, chaos is spreading in the city due to the huge hole in the palace. A blonde knight watches the scene from afar without understanding what happened in the castle. Back in the main hall, the king looks desperate, asking for more time. The woman then runs towards His Majesty, asking him to hold on. The silver-haired youth calls for his dragon Rizzledrak to fire another blow. Seeing this, a soldier panics and orders them to form a shield barrier. However, the protagonist knows that it is useless because the last attack has already gone through everything. He then points forward as his little companion prepares a new power. With a serious expression, the boy's target is revealed to be the king himself. A man in golden armor arrives, shouting that he is there to save Her Majesty. The soldiers quickly raise their shields to form a protective barrier around the throne. The silver-haired boy remembers that the previous attack was strong enough to destroy everything. Meanwhile, a huge sphere of black energy begins to form in front of them. Seeing the size of the power, his little dragon despairs and cries out for the king. The knight who just arrived looks back and says that the ruler is safe. But a soldier beside the throne asks why the enemy's magic suddenly stopped. The protagonist then explains that just like knights, monsters also spend mana. The skill screen shows that dragon breath costs a lot of energy and causes dark circles under the eyes. Realizing this, the young man thinks that even a normal attack would be enough to end everything. However, when he tries a new blow, the power simply disappears into thin air. The boy complains that it was too easy, and now he has to wait for the skill's cooldown. Suddenly, the woman from before asks if he was the one who dared to aim at her king's life. The Dragon Master and his companion look up with a serious expression. A screen then explains that knights are divided into ranks, such as apprentice and lower rank. In addition to the ranks shown before, we also see the ranks B, A, and finally the elite knights S. Among them is one of the 12 elite knights of the Zodiac, the warrior known as Ares. This is Ares, a man with silver hair and a muscular body, who is there to protect the king. Being the strongest knight in the kingdom, he asks worriedly if His Majesty is okay. The Dragon Master realizes that the situation has become very complicated for his side. The ruler then declares that war is imminent and orders that the invader be eliminated immediately. At this, the elite knight accepts the command as his lance begins to glow brightly. Completely panicked, the young man wonders how he will deal with an S-rank knight. His eyes widen as he remembers that the warrior is one of the 12 S-rank knights. Then the warrior prepares an area skill and warns that the young man will dance to his death. At that moment, he unleashes a powerful fire attack, proving himself to be a formidable opponent. The ability called Flame Wall creates a massive explosion of fire. The boy and his pet look up to see the huge wave of fire coming towards them. On his face, we see the pure terror of someone who is about to face his end. The gigantic explosion of fire then hits one of the castle's towers, destroying everything. The explosion of fire engulfs everything, and in the midst of the flames, we see a hand reaching out in despair. The skill not only hits the target but also the knights who scream in pain from the heat. Fallen to the ground, our hero is in shock as calls for help echo throughout the place. A system screen shows that the flame wall shoots fire in a straight line towards the target. As he knew he was the target, the young man managed to dodge it at the last second along with his pet. He looks back at the bodies and realizes that the enemy doesn't care about the allies. With that, the boy grits his teeth in anger because of the elite warrior's cruel attitude. The S-rank opponent then calls him a rat for dodging his powerful attack. Ares threatens by saying that he will make a beautiful hole of fire right in the heart of the invader. The protagonist then realizes that the enemy's skill is on cooldown. Still, he knows he has no chance, and his pet screams in pain from being injured. At that moment, the knight jumps and warns him not to move as it will hurt even more. Completely desperate, the boy tries to find a way out of this impossible situation. He reflects that he didn't come this far on his journey, just to have an end like this. This is when a main quest reward window pops up with a random item box. The main mission reward appears before the boy, and he begs the system to be quick. Completely out of time, he shouts for the item to be delivered immediately. The system then confirms that the random box reward was successfully accepted. With that, the item finally appears in his hands, glowing with a strong golden light. He then throws the box on the ground and a burst of smoke throws the enemy away from the scene. At that moment, the box begins to shine with a golden light, blinding the boy's vision. From within the light, a dark sword begins to materialize, leaving the protagonist shocked. At that, the boy's eye shines and he uses the Eye of the Sovereign skill to analyze the weapon. The screen shows the Hellbringer sword with a magic attack power of 999. The item was of rank S, and the young man did not understand who summoned it there at that moment. He then realizes that with all this power, the item wants him to annihilate the human faction. Immediately after, the colossal blade falls with everything, and its tip sticks into the ground with force. The impact of the weapon is so powerful that it cracks the entire marble floor around our hero. The boy is shocked by the absurd power of the sword and wonders if it is real. Suddenly, a wave of destructive energy begins to spread through the hall from the blade. The sword's energy wave destroys the hall with overwhelming force. With the impact, the protagonist is thrown away and is confused by the situation. He is then thrown into the air by the force of the explosion as he screams in despair. The boy is irritated because the palace cannot even support the weight of a weapon. At that moment, the entire ceiling of the place begins to collapse because of the power of the blade. The young man is shocked when he realizes the extent of the destruction that is taking place. As he falls amidst the rubble, he thinks he cannot end his journey there. Suddenly, he manages to steady himself in the air and abruptly stops his fall. Surprised, the boy notices that he has stopped falling and wonders what could have happened. Looking down, he sees that the destruction has mysteriously ceased in the hall. Just then, a small red being with pointy ears appears out of nowhere on his shoulder. The hero smiles as he sees his little dragon Reincarnation, who saved him from certain death. Because of this, people in the city look up at the sky and are amazed to see someone flying. The boy feels relieved to have narrowly escaped a tragic end, but now he knows that there is a great difference in power between him and the kingdom. He understands that he needs to become stronger, as S-class knights will continue to appear in his path. So your priority now is to escape the kingdom as fast as you can to save yourself. Meanwhile, one of the elite knights is furious that he let the invader slip through his fingers. Ares feels like a pathetic and incompetent fool for failing to accomplish his mission. He keeps blaming himself and thinks he should have been washed away at that time. At that moment, a page interrupts him, saying that His Majesty is calling him. The knight then runs to the throne room and asks his king for forgiveness for his failure. But the monarch interrupts him and says that the sun is setting, and Ares knows what that means. As night falls, the monsters that attack the kingdom become much stronger and more dangerous. That is why His Majesty puts him in command of the war and sends him to protect the walls of the kingdom. Even with the previous failure, the king still fully trusts in the abilities of his elite knight. Meanwhile, far away, the protagonist and his dragon fly towards the sunset. The boy remembers a tower defense game with $1 billion prize that was almost impossible to beat. In that game, the first wave of attack was composed of a horde of wild and cruel goblins. He knows that with Ares on the walls, it will be impossible for the first wave of monsters to invade the kingdom. He thinks that if he were an S-rank assassin instead of Ares, he would already be lost, but soon realizes he is falling. His little dragon also seems to be in trouble, so the boy asks him to hold on tight as there is not much time left. Suddenly, the fall becomes faster, and they go straight towards one of the castle walls. Desperately, the boy screams as he braces himself for the inevitable impact that is coming. He closes his eyes and realizes that the two of them are going to crash straight into the stone tower. At that moment, a huge impact occurs, raising a huge cloud of dust across the street. Soon after, the boy gets up complaining of back pain, but realizes he is fine. He then looks at his arm and wonders how his body withstood such an impact without a scratch. As he puts on his boots, a mysterious voice questions him about his identity and his strange clothes. The boy is completely shocked and wonders why just now another knight has appeared. His surprise is because of the blonde S-rank knight named Lib, who appeared right in front of him. With a serious expression on her face, the warrior orders the invader to identify himself immediately. But the boy remembers that the reason he managed to stop the 100th wave of monsters was her. Despite being S-rank, it was inefficient in defense but great for farming in dungeons and adventures. That's why he used it together with the dragon soul, because this combination was the key to victory. He remembers that in the 100th wave of the game, she was the key to victory against the monsters. Back in the present, the blonde knight demands that the intruder identify himself immediately. Then the warrior asks if the boy knows her, and he simply answers yes, saying her name. The young man claims he knows it very well, because he has played the game hundreds of times to understand its value. Without understanding, the warrior asks what he means, because she was the key to his strategy. But the protagonist reveals that now the factions have changed, and that's why she has become an obstacle. With a cold look, he concludes that the knight is the first target that needs to be eliminated. At this point, the scene changes to a dark night sky, indicating that something is going to happen. Soon, a hideous monster with red eyes appears in the darkness and lets out a terrifying roar. Seeing the creatures approaching, the castle soldiers despair and shout that they are coming. Then a horde of goblins begins to climb the castle walls without any difficulty. Seeing this, the commander orders the archers to shoot, and a rain of arrows falls on the monsters. Additionally, the soldiers throw stones to prevent the creatures from reaching the top of the wall. Even with all the efforts, the army of monsters is gigantic and surrounds the entire castle. A soldier then warns that they won't last long and asks where the commander is. At that moment, a soldier warns that Lord Ares is on his way, bringing hope to his companion. The scene returns to the blonde warrior, who demands that the boy answer about his identity. With a serious look, she threatens him, saying that if he doesn't respond, she will have to take action. The young man reflects that it would be impossible to defeat her, now as no S-rank knight could defeat her. Changing his expression, he points his finger and says he is an ordinary citizen who got lost along the way. Then a red creature appears out of nowhere behind the boy, letting out a roar, leaving him surprised. Seeing the creature, the warrior is left speechless and questions the presence of a monster inside. Embarrassed by the creatures on his shoulders, the young man laments that this is happening right now. The knight realizes that she is now suspected of complicity and that there is no turning back from the situation. With this, she concludes that her chances of winning are zero, as she has no ranged attacks. She then turns around and asks why the boy is hiding behind her if he understood the situation. The knight stands in front of the young man and reassures him that she will now protect him. The little monster lets out a confused roar and tilts its head, not understanding what is happening. This reaction from the creature leaves the boy's protector completely confused and irritated. However, the creature simply makes a cute expression with bright eyes at the warrior. With an analytical look, the boy realizes that this is the true personality of the knight called Lib. At that moment, a huge explosion occurs in one of the castle walls, scaring everyone. The young man points in shock at the destruction and realizes that this is his perfect chance to escape. At this, the little creature flies towards the smoke while someone screams about blowing up the walls. Soon after the smoke clears, the blonde knight wonders where the boy and the monster went. A soldier quickly approaches and, relieved, calls the knight by her full name, Lady Lib. However, the warrior's expression changes, and she looks worriedly towards the main gate. The large wooden gate of the fortress begins to shake violently with loud bangs. On the other side, the soldiers look at the main entrance with expressions of pure terror and fear. The blows continue with more force, and now the wooden gate begins to crack completely. The knight then orders everyone to drop their bows and prepare for hand-to-hand combat. Outside, a horde of green humanoid monsters tries to break down the gate at all costs. Leading the attack is a giant ogre with a spiked club about to deliver the final blow. Seeing the cracks in the gate, the blonde warrior and her soldiers prepare for the inevitable. Even though they were prepared, the guards' expressions couldn't hide the fear they were feeling at that moment. With one last blow, the giant ogre's thorny club completely destroys the wooden gate. With her sword shining brightly, the blonde warrior orders her soldiers to advance into battle. At that moment, one of the red-eyed monsters manages to get through the destroyed entrance and roars in fury. Immediately, the entire horde of green creatures invades the castle courtyard, outnumbering the guards. But suddenly, a man with white hair and a red cape appears in the midst of the chaos, and he introduces himself as the commander. The blonde knight is shocked to see the newcomer and then calls him Ares, wondering what he is doing there. However, the commander seems irritated by the situation and yells at the soldiers, calling them useless for failing. Then the white-haired warrior raises his staff and conjures a huge wall of flames in front of the monsters. The flames instantly consumed the green creatures, who screamed in pain as they were burned alive. With a sadistic smile on his face, he orders the monsters to dance in the fire until his mood improves. Meanwhile, from a safe place far away, the boy and the little creature watch the tide of battle change. The young man then reveals that in the past, he was the only player capable of single-handedly stopping 100 hordes of monsters. However, things are different now because the monster faction's ultimate goal is to annihilate the human faction. With that, the boy wonders if his mission now is to destroy them all before the 100 hordes reach their end. As he caresses the little creature, he thinks that if he could go back in time, this mission would not be impossible to accomplish. A raindrop falls on the red creature's nose as it looks up. The gray-haired boy holds his little companion and asks him to wait a little. There in the castle, the soldiers shout with joy because they have finally won the battle. However, the blonde knight has a serious look and says that this will be the last time. Far away, the protagonist enters the forest while a mysterious shadow watches him. He then looks at the city in the distance and reveals that he began his journey right there. But now the young man is in a dark forest in the territory of the monster faction. With a serious expression, he realizes that this path did not exist in the original game. The boy remembers restarting the game hundreds of times just to survive the 100 hordes. That's why he knows the kingdom's tactics, but now he's going to start from scratch. Suddenly he stops on a cliff because he remembered something very important. He then lifts the creature and reveals that its name is actually Rizeldrak. After that, the boy releases the little monster who flies a little away from him. At this point, the protagonist's eyes widen as he sees something completely unexpected. There were just a few hard-working ants carrying pebbles along the way. The little ants continued their work normally, carrying pebbles along the way without noticing their presence. Suddenly, one of them looks up and is completely terrified by the giants watching her. Then the protagonist and his companion observe the scene, and the boy notices that the little monster acts like a curious cat. Leaving the insects aside, the gray-haired young man sits down and thinks about what he should do next in that place. At that moment, a mission window appears right in front of him, as he had already expected it would. Main quest number 2 was for him to establish a monster faction, and the reward was a random skill. The boy then understands that he will need to personally gather and recruit the monsters to create his own faction. Thinking about the early game monsters, he remembers that goblins should appear in this region. But when he looks around, the young man realizes that there are no goblins or rabbits and wonders how he would talk to them. After all, he needs to speak their language, but a fast figure whizzes past him, interrupting his thoughts. This frightens the boy and barely has time to react to the surprise attack that came from the forest. Then a voice screams, telling the human to die as a shadowy blade advances towards him. The protagonist's eyes widen as the blow was aimed to hit him right in the face. But somehow he dodges the attack and the mysterious creature passes right by him. The swift blow only hits the ground, raising some dust and grass with the impact. Despite having dodged the protagonist, he feels a strong pressure on his neck, as if he were going to be caught. But the blow stops suddenly, and he notices that a female hand has caught the blade before it hits him. With wide eyes, the boy turns his face to see who saved him from that surprise attack. He then comes across long white hair and a female figure that appeared in front of him. The creature was actually a beast girl with animal ears and a tail, which leaves him shocked. The young man remembers the monsters he was looking for and asks if she might be a rabbit. This question makes the girl completely irritated, and her ears move in anger. She screams that she looks more like a fox, but the boy replies that he never said she was cute. The fox girl insists that she heard him say that and continues to complain to the boy non-stop. The protagonist watches her for a moment as she continues her tantrum in front of him. Then he gets an idea and realizes that she is actually an Arctic fox. The girl stops complaining immediately and remains quiet, staring at him with a surprised expression. Suddenly, other girls identical to her appear surrounding the protagonist, who is left confused. One of them approaches and says that he looks human, but has a strange monster smell. The gray-haired young man becomes tense as he is now surrounded by them, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, a system window pops up and informs you that 2 passive skills have been activated. The first is communication with monsters that allows him to understand what they say. The second ability makes him a friendly monster, attracting positive attention from creatures. The gray-haired boy finally understands why he could communicate with the fox girl. At that moment, one of the girls points at him and shouts, aggressively getting his attention. She then asks who the hell he is, while the young man tries to think of a quick answer. The protagonist is confused because his friendly monster ability should be working. But before he could respond, an arrow hits one of the fox girls by surprise. Then 3 men emerge from the forest, and one of them celebrates having hit the target. The young man watches them from afar and wonders if they are some kind of bandit faction. One of the foxes then screams angrily, saying that he knew he was only human. Looking at the injured girl on the ground, he realizes she is trapped. She accuses him of setting it all up and asks why he is going after their race. The boy tries to explain himself by saying that it was all just a big misunderstanding. Meanwhile, one of the bandits approaches and takes the rope from the trap that injured the girl. With that, the bandit pulls the rope of the trap with great force. At that moment, the fox girl is thrown upwards, while screaming furiously. One of the bandits screams with an expression of pure evil on his face. The rope then breaks, and the young fox begins to plummet towards the ground. Observing everything from afar, the protagonist is shocked by the situation. Taking advantage of the fall, the muscular man lands a powerful punch on the girl's face. With an evil smile, he seems satisfied that he hit the young woman squarely. His look shows that he will not have mercy on anyone there. But to the man's surprise, the girl manages to hold his wrist with one hand. Without wasting time, she lands a powerful kick right in the middle of the brute's chest. The force of the blow is so great that the man is shocked by the situation. With the force of the kick, the big guy is thrown far away. His companions observe the scene and one of them is shocked by what he has just seen. Even the protagonist is impressed as she knocked the man down with a single kick. Then one of the henchmen insults her by calling her a filthy mutt. The thug then insults her and then kicks her, while she is lying on the ground. From a distance, the protagonist observes everything and feels that something in that scene is not right. The fox girl endures the pain, feeling humiliated at being hunted. With his fist clenched, the boy wonders why he is getting so angry about this. Suddenly, a guy with a ponytail approaches him and asks if he's okay. The newcomer says that it could have ended much worse. He then asks what the gray-haired young man was doing there alone. At this point, the other henchman wonders if the girl is still out of her mind. Irritated by her grumbling, the man raises a club ready to attack. Seeing this, the protagonist looks furious, ready to interrupt them. But the man with the ponytail holds him back and tells him she will die if they continue. The bandit then calms down and apologizes to his group for getting upset. The protagonist sighs in relief, while the other says that his people are kind of intense. However, the guy shows an evil smile and asks if he was talking to the monster. In an instant, the man pulls out a knife and points it at the boy, who is stunned. The guy with the ponytail says that if he knew he was like the girl, everything would be easier. Before the boy could react, the man struck him in the stomach and the bloody blade fell. With his hand on the wound, the gray-haired young man asks what he meant by that. Upon seeing the scene, the fox girl is shocked and doesn't understand what is happening. Suddenly, the protagonist feels his entire body burning from the inside out. Then the man tells him to relax, as he had avoided the vital points on purpose. He goes on to say that the poison on the blade will finish the young man off in 12 hours. Then the bandit shows a vial, saying it is the antidote, and that he will only give it to him if he helps. Meanwhile, one of the henchmen grabs the girl's head very tightly. The group leader asks her where her tribe lives. Even though she is being held, the girl remains silent as they talk about the fox den. Wounded, our hero is surprised to hear about this place. Hidden among the trees, a small red creature observes the whole situation. In great pain, the gray-haired boy asks what this fox den might be. The man explains that it is a village of beastmen, and that if he helps find it, he will live. The gray-haired young man then understands what the villain wants, but wonders why the village. Meanwhile, the fox girl knows that taking them there will put everyone in danger. Determined, she opens her mouth and tries to bite her tongue so as not to reveal anything. Seeing the scene, our hero is shocked by the girl's desperate attempt. But the henchman reacts quickly and stops her from biting her tongue and ends up being bitten. At that moment, the boy understands that she was trying to sacrifice herself to protect the village. Even though she was injured, the girl stared at her attacker with hatred, as he called her a wild beast. Then the leader of the group says that all the beastmen they catch end up dying within a day. Approaching the fox girl, the leader of the bandits decides to extract the information himself. He holds her tightly, and she screams in pain at the man's sudden grip. He comments on how beastmen don't value their own lives to protect others. The bandit tells his henchmen to stay behind, as there may be others nearby. Turning to the boy, the villain says he wants to make a deal, and the hero notices his attitude change. Just then, one of the henchmen sees the red creature in the air, and wonders when it appeared there. With eyes glowing red, the small creature looks ready to attack the group of bandits. One of the henchmen then yells at his boss to be careful while the girl tries to warn him to swerve. But our hero knows it's already too late for the villain to react in time. Then the little creature uses its dragon breath to attack the bandits. With that, a ray of energy hits the leader's neck, who begs for his life. The small creature floats in the air after its quick and accurate attack on the enemy. Seeing the scene, the protagonist is shocked and ends up spitting out some blood. The other two henchmen look at what happened, completely terrified. Meanwhile, the little red animal screams furiously at the remaining bandits. The gray-haired boy realizes that the skill's cooldown hasn't ended yet. Immediately, the creature launches another attack that explodes on the ground near the villains. They notice that the grass has melted and that this wasn't even a full-force attack. Out of fear, one of the henchmen grabs his gun and laments that he hasn't even gotten married yet. The other bandit gets angry and calls the creature a fly as he prepares to attack. Seeing that, our hero is left wide-eyed, not knowing what to do, but the little animal easily dodges the blow of the henchman, who brushes past him. The small red creature falls to the ground completely knocked out after the blow. With that, the bandit becomes furious and curses the animal for almost hitting his head. His partner suggests they capture the little monster, as it could be worth a lot of money, but our hero looks down and says in a cold voice that he doesn't need that. Then the leader of the villains orders his henchmen to watch the boy and the girl. He says he will take care of the creature himself, as he prepares to finish it off. Seeing that, the protagonist wonders if he can survive just by being able to talk to monsters. In this, he remembers a time in the past when he was bullied by a group of people. The boy remembers how he always had to survive in a pathetic way, and how someone in his life told him he was completely useless. Even knowing what would happen, he continued to follow that path. Back in the present, the young man decides he doesn't want to regret losing anything else. At that exact moment, the villain raises his club to crush the little creature. The white-haired girl looks back and sees the protagonist with a scared expression. With a determined face, the hero reflects that the truly useless one there is not him. Suddenly, a system window shows that a passive skill has been activated. The skill is called Physical Monster and grants the young man strength that transcends human strength. Then the antagonist completes the boy's thought by saying that he is the truly useless one. But in the blink of an eye, the hero jumps towards the bandit with absurd strength. The villain throws a potion on the ground, but our protagonist crushes it with his fist. With that, the white-haired girl is shocked to witness the boy's power. The leader's henchmen also don't believe what they are seeing, and are very scared. The protagonist lands a punch so hard that the enemy's face is completely deformed. After the blow, the young man remains standing amidst the dust that rose up at the scene. Seeing the scene, the other bandits panic and run far away from there. Then the girl remembers that he was dying because of a poisoned blade, so she wonders how he's moving like that with so much power. Our hero ignores everything and kneels on the ground to pick up the small, injured creature. He holds the little monster, who wonders why the boy came to save him, even though he was injured. The red creature then rubs itself against his chest as a way of thanking him. Looking at the little monster, the young man remembers a friend who made him smile. He remembers a kitten that was always by his side, giving him strength. At that time, the protagonist was very lonely, and his only friend was the little feline. Back in the present, the little creature decides that he will protect him from all harm. Then the boy smiles and swears to the little monster that he will protect him no matter the cost.